Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Lifting the Veil podcast with your host, myself, Adrienne Lopez, the Integrative Healing Coach. Thanks for joining me for soul healing conversations, guests, and topics that support you in unveiling the true nature of your consciousness so you can embrace your destiny and not suffer your fate. If you hear something today that resonates with you, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and or subscribe, as it really supports the growth and reach of this podcast by increasing our listenership, making this whole endeavor possible. In the meantime, please sit back, relax, and get ready for this week's episode where I interview Alicia Love, a soul coach, shamanic astrologer, and meditation guide on the topic of speaking from the heart. We'll get started in just a moment. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Lifting the Veil podcast. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad to have my special guest today, Alicia Love. And as we begin our talk today and throughout our talk, you'll know why that name is the perfect name for her. She's just the most loving, sweet, gracious healer. And I'm so glad that she's here to share her work today and what she's up to in the world. And so before we get started, I just want to give a little bit of background on where she's coming from and the kind of work that she's doing and what she's going to be sharing with us today. So Alicia Love is here to empower the feminine in all. She's a trained soul coach, intuitive shamanic astrologer, and meditation guide. She has been a coach for almost 20 years, starting with the wellness coaching in the herbalist field and growing into the feminine empowerment coaching. She has learned to step into her intuition as her guide. And what I really, some of the other takeaways and gifts that Alicia offers is her online moon circle community, where she offers ceremony, astrology, and guided meditation journeys. She's also the founder of the Circle of Love in Portland, which I have attended several times, and it's such a delightful circle for feminines to get together and connect. Here in Oregon, she's also grown her work into Europe and supporting others to create circles of love in their local area. She is inspired by the moon and Venus and ultimately the divine feminine, using Reiki and various healing modalities to help clients recenter, clear away any disempowering beliefs or internal blocks, resolve fears, and learn to trust their guidance within. She coaches one-on-one worldwide, facilitates workshops, and other guided meditations. And I, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, you're in the middle of facilitating a Venus journey of Anana, and is that 8 weeks or?
We've done the women's circles with Inanna, so we're still in it. It's actually monthly because each month Venus and the moon come together and bring us into a new chakra gate, which is one of the things we'll talk about today.
Yes. So our topic today, after some chit chat, is speaking from the heart. And this, I was just telling her before we came online, like, have you been reading my mind, Alicia? Because that has been coming up in me personally. How is it that let's start there. How is it that we actually support ourselves and others to be present enough to connect to our own heart so we can speak from there, number one? And number two, how is this related to the Venus and moon work? So that's a part two. You can start either way, wherever you want to start.
We'll fully dive into the moon work, but let's start with the first question that you had, because really presence and being aware of your emotional world, because there's so much that we suppress or have hidden. And one of the courses I just gave was on shadow work and loving your shadow, because those are the things that keep us from being fully present. We're in our reactive state. We're coming from old patterns, and it keeps us from really living in this full and open heart and being able to speak from that place
Yeah.
often. Like all of us. I still am working through my stuff just like everybody else.
Amen, sister. Yeah. It's at different times in our life where we have growth spurts, right? And we're like, yeah, I got this. And then, sometimes we get triggered or we're put in stressful situations where we get pulled out of our resource that we've been growing. So totally got you there. All right. And so let's dive into this Venus. I've talked to you a lot, right? I come to your women's circles every month and participate with you and in the different programs that you have. And I met you right when I was discovering or diving into the myth of Inanna, which is
aligned was that, right?
Yeah.
Both really going strong with this Inanna. So the goddess Inanna, for anyone who doesn't know, is the ancient Sumerian goddess, queen of heaven and earth. And the hymns that were found on the tablets that are the most ancient written down goddess story that we have. So like the origins of how humanity wrote down what they believed about the goddess back before Jesus and the whole masculine patriarchy took over, there was a very feminine, rich culture. And they understood that Venus, the star in the morning sky and evening sky, was a planet that moved around. They understood that. And they knew that that was a reflection of our inner world. And so they made this story about Inanna. So she is the star Venus, and she travels to the underworld to visit her sister Ereshkigal
for 3 days.
Yep, and was there because she was killed, because that's what happens when you go to the underworld. It's a death and rebirth story, right? Similar to then further down in history, Persephone going for half of the year and coming back, right? So we've got these myths in our ancient history of how to go within and learn through the chakras how to energetically release what is no longer the pattern that we want to hold, die to the old ways, and then reclaim and renew on the way back out. And Venus as a planet travels an 18 or 19 month cycle. So it's actually a monthly lunar conjunction that brings us from one gate to the next. She goes through these 7 gates, and the story is she has to remove an article of clothing at each gate. And we're recording this on November 9th, and you'll publish it this week, I'm sure, so people will know. This week, the gate is the throat chakra that we are entering into. Actually, today is the Venus moon conjunction, and it's in the morning sky, and it's this crescent moon and the star just right there together. And it's a beautiful way to follow an internal pattern of discovery and renewal. And just like we follow the moon in its 28-day cycle, renewing with the new moon and celebrating at the full moon and then releasing again, in a longer version, we're doing that with Venus.
Yeah, and what I'm really appreciating right now is that the people that created this story realized our connection with nature, and that what happens in nature happens in life because we are part of nature. We're not separate, and that we have to go through the death and dying process and the letting go in order to create our next harvest, our next season, just like the crops out in the field. And
it's a renewal.
Renewal, death and renewal. And that's deeply connected to the feminine, because we're so connected to nature as having the vortex of creation in our bodies, and being able to just be embraced by that, and to be held and to be comforted as yes, that's part of the process too.
Exactly. It's so natural that we need to go through this death and rebirth. And it's daily with the sunrise, sunset. It is monthly with the moon. And then all of the planets and all of these energies actually come in other cycles too. And we can really feel it the more we follow and listen and be present with it.
Yeah, it's like it's I think of those little the mushrooms that they have all the little threads underneath the soil that are connected.
Mycelium.
Mycelium, thank you. I always forget the name of those, but they're the little connective threads, and we're connected energetically. And that when we begin to expand out our little threads, which are our intuitive nature, we actually can plug back into the organic field in which we are made of, you know?
And it's so important for our hearts to be connected because we actually generate our own energy. And when we are connected to the earth and to nature, we exchange energy. And then, we do that same exchange of energy outward and upward. And there's so many patterns and energies to follow the threads of
Yeah.
back to ourselves. And one of the things that really got me the most excited about learning about Inanna was understanding the heroine's journey and how it's a feminine way of doing by being and working on the inside and doing that work instead of the masculine hero story of going out in the world and slaying the dragon and bringing back the reward, right? That's the external masculine process. And Mars is a great representation of that, which Mars is just about to conjunct the sun and have his renewal too. He's in the underworld time.
Yeah.
So we're going through a lot of these energies in layers and over time. So that's one of the things I love to do is bring it back around to where are we right now with the rhythm of nature? Where are we in the rhythm within our bodies? And we're here talking about speaking from the heart because we're working this month with the throat chakra and clearing away anything that stifled your voice from childhood, those patterns that we created, becoming people pleasers or codependent in whatever the pattern is that each of us have, and actually letting it go. And the way we let it go is loving ourselves. Loving that part of ourself that had to make that choice in the past or was doing it to keep us safe and get the love that we needed. And that's the shadow work. That's the going inside and choosing to accept and love all those parts of you. And then, we do have to learn a new way. And that's growth and development in a different realm, right? The letting go is the first step. And then the reclaiming, we come back around to it.
Yeah, and the thing is we can't choose if we're not aware. We can't create a new way of being that's more in alignment with our heart if we're not even aware that we have the option. But so correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's coming at the end of an 18-year cycle. Is that true?
We finished the cycle in August.
Okay, then I was.
Yep. We are newly in the new cycle, which our last cycle was in like the elder wisdom of Capricorn. So the whole cycle had this like wisdom
for 18 years. Yes.
18 months. 18 months.
Oh, for 18 years. Months. Okay. That's better. Okay. 18 months.
19 months. Yeah. It's because it changes through
give or take a month
sign that it starts in. So they call it the Venus star point when the Venus lines up with the sun closest to the earth. So Venus is between the earth and the sun. That was kind of mid August that happened. And then Inanna in the story hears the call to take this journey. She wants to go and discover what it's like to die. She's a goddess. She doesn't know the whole dark side of the internal world. Yeah. She just knows rays of light and life. And of course, her choice to go learn about death does show us the reflection in nature, how things have to die. And then we can come back to life after we've had that time of rest and surrender, really, just like stop doing, take a break.
Yeah.
And as we go through this season of, we're going to the darkest days, longest nights, for winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. And we can feel this like going inward spiral happening. So as we're following it through the chakras, we just last month were revisioning our perspective. What was it that we were seeing differently, or needing to look back and be like, oh, actually, I'd like to change that perspective to update it for now. And
Yeah.
like we were talking about, it's the present and being in presence. And that's through awareness and acceptance that we can then fully embrace ourselves and live from that heart-centered space.
That's incredible. Throughout my journey, I was studying all these hero journeys, looking for myself, like that missing piece. And it's like, well, you're given this recipe, even though you inherit, right? And you're like, this is not wrong. It's not bad. Tastes all right. But you're like, I feel like something's missing and I'm not quite sure, so that was the missing piece with the Anana. Like, I'm like, oh, okay. She goes to visit her dark sister, which is really herself, right? The part that she's outcast or exiled, and as a whole culture, right? How have we done that to ourselves? So
And
it's
the
a power.
feminine,
What?
the feminine.
Yes, to the feminine, and how we've all suffered, all genders, right? This isn't just a feminine thing. We all have feminine and masculine energies in our psyche.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we need that for balance, which is the ultimate like justice, right? And coming into that balance that allows us to speak from our heart, from both aspects of our nature, the masculine and the feminine, which is so well, I don't want to even say needed. It's our nature, right?
It's essential. Yeah, essential for balance. I love that you brought that word balance in, because it is about integrating all parts
Yes.
of us, right? Both sides, all sides, the dark and the light. And it's truly about that, bringing it online and bringing it
Mhm.
into our conscious awareness so that we can work with it, choose, and that's our free will. We get to choose how we work with it. How do you
Yeah.
integrate? You're going to do it different than I am.
Yeah.
And there are some keys to unlock those extra special, we've talked about gene keys. It's not
Yes.
necessarily my specialty, but I certainly enjoy that. I'm an astrologer primarily. So for me, the keys unlocking are those energy signatures of the myth and the energy of the masculine, feminine, expansion, teacher. Like each planet has their energy that we can tune into. And as they are highlighted in geometry of squares and triangles and sextiles and alignments,
Yeah.
is when it shifts within us,
Mm-hmm.
unlocks something. There's like a key there. And Venus really is the key to the new earth, the new era, because bringing that feminine back into balance is what the world needs, coming from our loving, compassionate, accepting, heart open place is just really what I'm hoping the whole world is gonna
Yeah. Well, I think
choose.
she's been calling. And the thing is she Venus also represents justice as well. So I think that's super important. And values, right? What we value.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it came to me when I was away. I went on a little trip to Denver and did some energy work there. That was just super powerful. But it came to me that, it's like I've studied in different schools, lots of different schools, a lot of different philosophies. I'm always fascinated about, the mystic schools of wisdom and what's available in them as well as you are. But yeah, I was thinking just like, the earth like really is related to our body, and the moon is really our emotions, and the sun is really our highest mind. So we are a walking solar system, and either we're either we are like navigating ourselves with harmony or um, unconsciousness, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, like we have this internal harmony that we can actually support and grow and focus on and be with. And then when we do that, our speaking naturally comes into alignment with that order.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure I speak for myself. I'm not just speaking for myself, that all of us have had really dysfunctional models for getting our needs met, inability to identify our needs, which are our values, which is Venus again, and then be able to state them in a really healthy, like I'm going to say diplomatic way, not a demand, not a like a criticism, but this is what I would really enjoy and celebrate right now. And what becomes available when we get to do that.
Yes, yes. And enjoyment, pleasure, enjoying, living in joy is totally the goal, right? I mean, don't we all want to
And that's
enjoy
Venus as
that?
well.
She just brings so much pleasure to my life when I
Yeah.
focus on that is, if I'm having a hard day and I'm feeling stuck and things just aren't moving, it really is about surrendering first and then choosing and I use these noble questions in my practice a lot, especially with my coaching clients, asking from that higher perspective. What can I do to make myself feel better right now? Like, what is it that would bring me more joy? What is it that would feel nourishing? Who can I reach out to get that need met? Because we pigeonhole ourselves into feeling very stuck in one person meeting one need. And it's really being able to voice it in a way that is freedom and expansion and allowing to receive it from wherever it wants to come from, right? I know we believe so much in this energy of spirit that if you surrender and ask spirit to make your needs met, to meet your needs, then wherever you voice it, someone will hear it and it will come to you and it will flow eventually, right?
Yeah, you don't have to put it on, one person, like you must meet my need. And then the fallout from that and what happens.
Yeah, and that really does speak to how we're communicating from our heart, because if we're demanding and making our needs, small or ourselves small in some way, then we're not using our full energy body to express and to receive.
And see what's possible. Yeah, be open to what's possible. And it might not look like what how you've been trained to see the world, which is a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So you guys are in the third month of this process. Is that correct? Since
Yeah,
August?
the third date is how we say it, because it's just based on the date of the moon coming together each month with Venus. And
Mm-hmm.
then once she disappears from the morning sky, she'll be in the underworld for 40 days and 40 nights. Doesn't that sound familiar to other stories? There's so much parallel to the stars out there, the stories that we make about the cycles of life down here. So there is something in the wisdom of being gone for 40 days, going into that darkness of the unknown and surrendering to it. And that'll happen actually more like April.
Okay.
Right before we come out into spring, which will be
Mm-hmm.
kind of a nice, like that, for us here in Portland, when we get springtime, it's usually June, right?
Yeah.
So we'll be full in swing with the us
Officially, yeah.
turning out of the underworld and reclaiming. So as Anana goes through the gates, she starts with her crown. She takes off her crown. And that is her surrender to the ego of what it means to be a queen, right? And all of those,
And the role of queen, right?
all those things we put on ourselves that are the
Yeah.
requirements of our life, that we have to show up in our own leadership of our own lives.
Yes.
And, then the third eye is her earrings, and the throat chakra is her lapis necklace, and goes down to the breastplate on the chest. And she's got a belt there for that empowerment, third chakra, we're going down to the root. And then when she reclaims, she actually comes back out of the underworld through those same gates. So she puts on her robe first. That's the root chakra. Mm-hmm. And then the second, then the third. So then we are building on the way up, on the way out.
Of renewal.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it is interesting that it happens in April when we celebrate Easter, which is the resurrection, the celebration of the resurrection and new life. So just so fascinating when you start, I know, like, I've been a lover of world religions, myths, storytelling. I mean, ever since I was young, right? Because I was like, oh my gosh, every tradition has some version of the story told a little bit different. And yet there's wars going on over them, like whose version of the story is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am guessing that a lot of people right now on the planet are being energetically affected by what's going on right in the Middle East. It's kind of hard not to be
aware.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like, what your take is on that. And you don't have to give me a political synopsis, but I'm just like in regard to this Venus cycle and this like masculine air, like god of war, right? The Mars. And what is available? I mean, out of what looks like somebody I had mentioned earlier had sent me an email, is this the end?
I mean, I was talking to a refugee that was third generation that had left Palestine. His grandparents had left, and he was talking about this, and in a good perspective, I really appreciated it. So the thing that I took as the energetic takeaway for what's going on is, yes, this could create World War III. And honestly, Mars moved into Scorpio and the war started. Like, that was aligned. So now Mars is well into Scorpio and about to align with the sun towards the end of November, like the 21st or something. And then this energy of Mars uprooting the like all of the pent up whatever was there to express it, and it is warlike. And when I work with Mars, I work with the peaceful warrior. And that's like, okay, where do I take that energy of action and create divine action? Where do I take that energy of standing up for what I believe in and use my voice in an empowered way for kindness and not for cutting people down, and it's happening literally, it's happening figuratively, and it does happen all over the world regularly, right? But when we see it come really big like this, and this is an ancient war, and this is, I'm not going to take sides about it. I just don't believe in killing people at all for any reason. So let's just say, let's get our hearts about this, and there's got to be a diplomatic solution. And I know that someday we can get to that. And it is not the war and the Mars energy that's going to bring us there. It is the Venus and the love. And so if peace talks are available in this next month, this would be the time to be in talking about what needs to happen. Once we get down into the heart chakra, I would hope that energy really opens. So like the month of December will really have a shift into like some more loving, caring, like hopefully the people on both sides of that line see each other as human beings and people with a heart that deserve, life just as much as anyone else. And that's just my hope and wish for the world, right? Peace on earth would be where I hope we're headed. And that's what I try to do in my own life. And honestly, this last month has been extra challenging in my own life around this Mars energy, the war energy, because I have a teenager. So there's just like a difference.
And he's a masculine, right?
And he's a boy. Yeah, he is definitely all masculine and asserting his independence in the ways that he, in his limited brain growth capacity at this point, has, and doesn't want to listen. Teenagers know everything. And so for me, it's been catching myself when I want to say something harsh or, confronting, and trying to, what the feminine does is hold boundaries. She holds it. And the masculine is actually the container for the feminine to be held in. So it's all about balance within us. But there's something to this understanding of Venus, feminine, awakening. And the thing I didn't mention before, this new Venus cycle, so this going up and through till next year, it started in Leo. So whenever we have that alignment of the sun and Venus with this new cycle was in Leo,
Okay, so it went from Capricorn to Leo.
Went from Capricorn to Leo.
So interesting, because they're not, are they just like, they're not, one's a earth and one's a fire.
Yeah, Venus does a 5-pointed star. They call it the Venus Rose. It's sacred geometry.
Oh, yes.
If you look at the whole 8-year cycle, she'll go from Leo Venus star point. 8 years later, she'll do a Leo Venus star point again.
Okay, got it.
It has 5 different signs, and it rotates, but it is that, yeah. And it's the sacred, like the pentagram star is literally how Venus and this feminine and the witchy nature of that, occult was founded on too. So it's all related to Venus.
And the rose. Yeah.
Great that we're talking about it, because it brings us into awareness for what cycle we're in. So right now we're in a cycle for heart-centered leadership, because that's what Leo is all about.
Yes.
And it'll change again after that. I actually don't have it in my mind right this second. What's next?
That's okay. We'll let you off the hook.
There's 5.
Yeah.
So we've got this really powerful energy of the heart bringing online for people. And I really hope that, just like you said, for global peace and for resolving these challenges, if we remember that we're all humans with a heart and that we all desire love, and the more love we can be towards ourselves and with each other, the more love there will be on the planet, and it will ripple out energetically. All those threads of kindness weave a beautiful tapestry.
Yes. And it's like this, what do they say, that the Chinese character for crisis is opportunity as well, right? Because they're two sides of the coin, or two sides of a crisis, right? It looks awful, but actually it's an opportunity for everyone in a way to look at how that violence is, happening inside of us so subtly. And just like a fish in water, we get conditioned to berate ourselves, to criticize ourselves, to judge ourselves. In case nobody's doing outside of us, we got it covered, right? And that is self-violence.
Yes, it really is. So if people are looking for what can I do about this global crisis that we're in, do it inside, and do it in your community where you do have that locus of control, because you'll feel more empowered leading from love here, where you do have an influence. And it starts in your own heart, number one, first place. And the key to unlock that is really gratitude and kindness towards self. Like, how do you show up for yourself? What can you be grateful for? And speaking more kindly to ourselves. That's that throat chakra. It's not just speaking outwardly. You nailed it. It's also the self-talk and how we, project that judgment on ourselves.
Yeah, and this is really connected to the divine feminine, as well as making the invisible visible. And as a student and a practitioner of nonviolent communication with Marshall Rosenberg, I loved his what he called it, the jackal, but he actually had physical ears that you would put on, and that a lot of times they're not pointed out. Like, we're not listening through criticism, we're actually listening to ourselves in a critical way. And it's just so throughout culture that it's just unconscious. And so it's like a reweaving, right? That's part of the reason why the course I'm teaching starts today. We're looking at the Handless Maiden, which is such a powerful story, but reweaving the soul, right? So we're actually reweaving the neural pathways in our brain and our bodies, just like if we were a mushroom, right? And we're coming back online to the organic blueprint of connection, of love, of what is this? This like abundance of connection that we've been cut off from through the mind, and not to bash the mind or the masculine. It's all working together, but we got to have the balance, right?
Yes. And I think, it was the modernization of the world that disconnected us from nature.
Yeah.
That's where we lost our connection to that part of ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. Oh, right. So you're on the third gate in the descent of your Venus, and I know that you're also doing a monthly meditation. Do you do that? That's in person, right?
Yeah, it's actually weekly. Yeah, that's the Women's Love Circle
Yes.
is monthly, and the Circle of Love Meditation Circle is a weekly gathering in Portland at Awakenings Wellness Center, where
Yes.
we have just every Monday night, 6 p.m. we get together, and it's amazing to see the people who show up and become regulars to practice this sit together, sharing our hearts. And I'll ask an opening question. We'll all go around and introduce ourselves with this like really vulnerable share of intimacy and openness. And it's a safe container. And then I guide about a 30-minute meditation. And I record all of those. So my YouTube channel at Alicia Love Circles has all the moon meditations and Circle of Love meditations that I do in my in-person, so that I can spread that far and wide. Yeah.
Yeah. And if, people, ideally it would be nice to attend live, but sometimes we can't get there. So it's nice to have a backup, just to tune in with the people, and we get to tune in with our own hearts.
And my moon circle is online. So that one is virtual Wednesday night at 6:30 Pacific for everyone across the globe.
Okay, worldwide.
Yeah, we have members from all over the US and actually North America, sometimes Canada and Mexico, Costa Rica. Every once in a while, people can join from Australia. The timing works out okay for most people, except for Europe. And that is a 1 hour honoring for the new moon. And every other week, then we do the full moon. And it's a great community, people that show up every single time because they know that following this rhythm of change and energy is what they want to focus on in a spiritually honoring way within themselves. So it's been a real honor to have a group of people come together regularly, and everyone's welcome to join, especially for a first try. Just check it out. And then it's a pretty low cost monthly membership.
Awesome. Yeah, I think once a consciousness begins to realize that there's like these supportive patterns that are already out there, they're available, they've just been waiting for you to see them. And looking back on my life, I just see all the places that Venus, the divine feminine, has been working in my life, and I didn't have a name for her. I didn't, because we don't have it in our vocabulary in the Western world. It's been exiled in so many different ways. So I'm like, well, I'm seeing this, I'm experiencing it, but I don't know if it really exists because I don't have a name for it. And it wasn't until probably these last 3 years that I actually could talk about it, because I had a name for it and a word for it. And I'd been dancing around it for years, just going, oh, look at this, isn't this interesting? And it is the divine mystery of her, and that is under all of life and is so essential to our health and our well-being on every level, not just individually, but for culture, for our evolution. So
Absolutely.
I can see why you're doing this work. We were going to add something.
Oh, it's just so important. Yeah, to me, it's something I awakened to 20 years ago. And then in this last 2-3 years, like you said, like something's crystallizing, something's becoming a lot more clear, right? Coming into focus. 20 years ago, when I was just graduating college and I didn't have a name for it. Like you said, like I didn't know how I was walking this path, but a voice inside of me through the soul coaching and the awareness of doing that practice for the last 18 years has actually helped me to define, like, my purpose is to be in my divine feminine so that people can see what that looks like and be able to name it and have clarity around it. And I'm here to awaken that and spread the love for everyone to be that within themselves in their own unique, balanced way.
Yes. And it's almost like when you were talking right now, I was like, oh, God, that she's like bringing it online, right? She's bringing it into consciousness. Like back online, I should say back online.
Back online. Yes, because this ancient wisdom and our ancestors, our grandmothers, before we started, we did a grounding meditation and you said, bring in whatever other elements you want. And I was like, those grandmothers, there they are. They're just, whew, and they just stand behind me and they whisper in my ear sometimes. They're just like, okay, this is the way. Let's remember.
Yes, because, I imagine that people have gotten so used to feeling alone because we've been cut off from these, communal structures that were meant to support us through life, and not just in a partner. Yes, that's nice to have. But, there's more single people now than probably ever. And it's like, we weren't meant to do this alone. You don't necessarily have to have a partner, but there's to be held by community we are wired for connection and, just naturally. And then when we don't have that, we go berserk, right?
That's actually the way of the feminine. The feminine comes together in community. We weave baskets together. We are song circle holders. This idea of doing it together is the feminine way. The masculine is very solitary, and they have this top-down idea of how things work. And it doesn't have to be one way or the other. It actually needs to be both.
Yeah.
And how and when we exert those energies and use them and it's a dance. It's totally a dance.
It is a dance between the Shakti and the Shiva, right? Oh, good. Well, I see we're just coming upon the end of the hour, and I just want to thank you so much for joining me. We've been scheduling this on and off for a couple weeks now, so I'm glad that you were able to clear your schedule and make it. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm going to put all of Alicia's contact information in the description of this podcast. So if you want to find out more about her circles and the work that she does, that will all be there for you. And if you're here listening for the first time, I just want to thank you for stopping by. I publish this almost weekly, depending on my schedule. And sometimes I do solo casts, and sometimes I have wonderful guests like Alicia Love. So I just want to thank you for taking a listen and showing up. And until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are. Bye for now.